Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Thank you for joining us. The 9th time that we're going to live stream Vegas Golden Knights training camp 2.0 in this lead up to the return to play and the hub city of Edmonton for all Western Conference games. The Eastern Conference teams will be traveling to Toronto. Vegas scheduled to arrive in Edmonton on Sunday. So this is the final segment of workouts here at City National Arena, Summerlin Hospital Rink. Welcome to the Training Camp Bulletin presented by Station Casinos. Darren Millard in Studio 31 along with Gary Lawless. The cool down will immediately follow today's practice. Mike McKenna will join us there. We'll dive into the power play and the penalty kill and the adjustments there. But this is the home stretch of Phase 3.
Yeah, it's kind of hold your breath time, I think, for the Golden Knights and everyone around the NHL, because once they get to the bubble, you look at the test results that we're seeing from the bubbles that the NBA and MLS have got going on right now. The test results the positives are really low numbers. And that makes sense, right? Once you're in that bubble, there's a real opportunity to avoid catching the virus. So getting there is crucial. Golden Knights have done a fantastic job so far. And if they can get to Edmonton in a real good situation in terms of preparation on the ice, but also, not losing a player. If a player tests positive now, he doesn't get to go until he's healthy and has had a number of negative tests in a row. So really critical to get there in good shape, and Vegas has done an excellent job so far.
Yeah, we've entered that window where any type of positive test will delay your departure. We're looking at the goaltenders being on the ice, getting a little bit of an early warm-up with goaltending coach under the supervision of Mike Rosati. Just before we get too far into practice and what they're going to do today with Pete DeBoer coming off the off day, just pick up on the idea of positive tests and what's going on around the league. It has been really good from a positive test standpoint in this Phase 3 compared to the Phase 2 portion.
Yeah, I think they've done some interesting things. They've kind of done their own little contact tracing in terms of, if a player has been around someone else who's tested positive, they've said to that player, you're going to sit out until we make sure you're clean and don't have a positive test. So they test him for a few days, and they're like, okay, you can rejoin the group. They don't want to have a player bring it into the group and then have it spread. So when the Penguins held out 9 guys at one point in time, that there weren't any positive tests in that group, but they had been around someone else who had tested positive. And those steps, I think, I just think the NHL has, and the teams, and if you draw a fine point on right here in Vegas, the program that Jay Millett put together here, and then the buy-in from the players to make sure that they didn't get sick, it's been tremendous, and it's going to put Vegas in a really good spot. The Boston Bruins, they've missed David Pastrnak and Ondrej Kase for most of their camp because those guys were around someone, and that Cam Neely, the president of the Bruins, came out today and said, I wish they had made different decisions. When they were in Phase 2 prior to getting to Phase 3, making sure that they were just going to the rink and going home. That's what the Golden Knights almost en masse have done, and it really puts them in a great position. Imagine if you're Bruce Cassidy and Pasternak's their best player. He hasn't been there. He hasn't been able to participate. It's an issue.
And on the subject of the Boston Bruins, Tuukka Rask, everybody was wondering why he was out, actually fractured a finger while doing a box jump, off-ice workout, and it's on his glove hand, affects how you catch the puck. So he says he's going to be fine by the time games start.
They're in a good position with having Yaroslav Halak as their second goalie. And Rask has already said, look, one of the things is in a normal Stanley Cup playoff, you play every other day, and then when you travel to the city, there's a couple days off. There's none of that. No. You're going to play like 2 out of every 3 nights. You're going to be playing. So one goalie isn't going to get it done. There's going to be too much fatigue. Now, I guess if the guy, in Toronto, they probably will go with Frederik Andersen the whole time. But Rask said...
But they do have insurance there, acquired Jack Campbell.
Yeah, sure. Okay, yeah. Not the same as Robin Leonard or Jaro Halak. You know what I mean? It's insurance, but Anyways, that Rask said, I'm not going to play all the games. You can't, and I don't think anybody's going to. And that's why there's been all this conversation in Vegas about, which guy will start the playoffs and play in game one. Okay, that's one thing. Both these guys are going to play. Fleury and Leonard will both play in the playoffs. And you look around.
You really think that there's going to be some flip? Maybe not. Vegas, I can see, but other teams. You think that there's going to be a lot of flipping back and forth?
Again, you know what I mean? If you're the Winnipeg Jets and you have Connor Hellebuck and then Laurent Brossoit is your next guy, there's quite a bit of a difference there. So maybe not, but that's why
Boston, yeah.
That's Boston for sure, Dallas for sure. That's why it's an advantage. Pittsburgh will use both guys. That's why it's such an advantage for a team like Vegas that there's no drop-off. You go from Marc-Andre Fleury to Robin Leonard or Leonard to Fleury, and it's, we're talking the real thin edge of the wedge in terms of difference between these two guys. And their styles are different, but the results are excellent for both, and that's a big edge.
We'll get into the fitness, and I still think that there's going to be a fatigue factor in this. There's always attrition in the Stanley Cup playoffs, but in this situation with 5 rounds coming out of it, I still believe that might be elevated just a little bit. On the subject of what the Golden Knights have done with Jay Millette and the training staff and the medical department, they still aren't in, the players aren't in the regular National Hockey League dressing room here at City National Arena. They're spread out between all the dressing rooms that are used between both rinks here to minimize the number of players in each room.
Yeah, listen, Jay Millette has left no stone unturned. William Karlsson and Oscar Dance, I think they live together. They come together. They come to the rink in different cars because they're not allowed to carpool. He's really kind of done a great job of putting together a real strict protocol, and got the guys to buy in. That's the second part. It's not just, and that comes from the start of this organization, the way Millette, Doug Davidson. The way they've approached fitness and health and strength right from the beginning. The guys believe in them. They believe in what they're putting down. So when this happened and those guys said we're going to do it this way, and this way, there's no pushback. There's no, hey, I don't want to do it that way. It's okay if they think that's the best, we're going to do it.
So the first time that they're in a room together as a group will be in Edmonton, by the looks of it, and the Hud City, based on...
They'll be on the plane together.
Yeah.
There you go,
That's true. But there's different groups on that. You don't associate with 90 at all. There's real rules to that. Players getting ready for practice. Mark Stone chatting things up. We'll go by the sweaters that they're wearing. And it looks like we'll have a practice to start. And if there is a scrimmage, it'll be at the other end. Steve Spott, Pete DeBoer, Ryan McGill, Ryan Craig, Mike Rosati, the coaching staff, gave the players yesterday off after a 4-day block. So they've gone 4-day skate, day off, 4-day skate, day off, and that makes this the final little segment.
They just showed Steve Spott, and now we're looking at Pete DeBoer. When Kelly McCrimmon hired Pete DeBoer, the whole world knew that Steve Spott was coming shortly as well. But he didn't come right away, and that was by design. Kelly wanted Pete DeBoer to work with the two Ryans, Ryan McGill and Ryan Craig, and get to know them for a little bit and have them start to form a little bond so that he didn't want to have two cells. He didn't want to have the old staff and the new staff kind of, working
Silos,
exactly. So he introduced DeBoer first, and then later on they brought Spott into the mix as well. And I think it was a really smart decision. And then the fact that they got to know each other a little bit, worked together, and then the pause, I think DeBoer took it a step further in giving everybody assignments and for their weekly Zoom calls and what they had to do. And they've really come together as a staff, and I think that's in life you always have to look for the positives when you're going through a negative situation. And that, I think, is a big positive for this group.
So do you think that came from Kelly's experience as a head coach all the years in the Western Hockey League?
I think it was, in some ways, it's common sense when in hindsight, but Kelly had to think of it first. And Kelly's just, he's so experienced, and everyone thinks, oh, he's just a first-year NHL GM. This is one of the most experienced hockey people on the planet. A player, an owner, a manager, a coach, a bus driver, a ticket salesman, a sponsorship salesman, a equipment negotiator. Like, he's done it all, and it's the body of work that he brings to this and the breadth of his experience. There's not many things that he hasn't seen before, and Kelly has hired and fired lots of coaches.
Hope you're enjoying the live stream of the Training Camp Bulletin, brought to you by Station Casinos, bringing you this Vegas Golden Knights practice, the 9th workout in this Phase 3. The team will depart for Edmonton, the Western Conference hub city, on Sunday, play Arizona in an exhibition game on the 30th. That's the final day of the exhibition play in the National Hockey League's lead up to the qualifying round and series, and then the round robin. And then Vegas will play Dallas, St. Louis, and Colorado in that order. Mike Rosati goes by the goaltenders and gives them their last bit of advice. See, Fleury's wearing the old glove that he was wearing in the pot. I didn't know we get in. Mike McCann will be by later, but
I'm not the equipment junkie. That's you two guys.
But it is interesting that he's wearing I don't know whether this is the same old glove or it's a new version of that color, but. Fashion, Robin Leonard knows all about that, much part of the goaltending. But we're going to get the practice in a little bit. Facebook check-in, Louis Pierre in Quebec, Debbie in Atlanta, Wes is watching in Vancouver, Sharon in North Carolina, up in Lethbridge is Gwen, and Brian here in Las Vegas. Hello to you. Thomas from Scotland is with us again, one of our more consistent viewers, and Kareen in Las Vegas. And Twitch, question here, it's just a Go Knights Go chant from Some Dude 88. Some Dude.
If you're watching this through one of our social channels, it means that you like that sort of thing. And I don't know if everyone, all Golden Knights fans follow Robin Leonard. They should. It's at Robin Leonard, ROBINLEHNER, and he is an interesting tweeter. He tweets immediately after games. So if you've watched the game and then a few minutes after you go onto his Twitter account or onto his timeline, he will tweet, "Hey, great win for the guys. I felt good. Didn't like that third goal," or whatever it is. It's really fascinating. You go into the dressing room and Robin Leonard, his phone is close by, and he likes to connect with the fans of the Golden Knights and his fans all around the National Hockey League. I think it's a real interesting wrinkle in his personality.
And that's before the media gets in there. Like, he's tweeting before we get a chance to communicate with him. In
some ways, you can get like that first, bit of reaction. You can get it from Robin Leonard.
You know why he doesn't like that third goal? Never, hardly ever happens.
Yeah.
So that's, it's like, how'd they get three?
Well, that's, to me, Dale Talon was screaming at me one night about something, and it wasn't screaming at me. He was mad about the refereeing, and I was sitting with him in between periods in Florida, where he's the general manager, and he said to me, he goes, "It's a 3-2 league, and if you get your goalie lets in a bad goal, or you get a bad call in the third and they score, it costs you the 2 points." Well, Robin Leonard is he's like the greatest embodiment of that saying, 3-2, because he is a 2-goal guy. He might let in one, he might let in two. It's not very often that third one gets by him. So if he's playing and you're going to beat Vegas, you're going to have to beat them, 1-0 or 2-1, something like that.
You just saw Robin Leonard. He was on his knees standing up and his head's over the crossbar. Mike Rosati, an accomplished goaltender in his own right internationally, played in multiple Olympic games for Italy, and you see Leonard's almost up to his shoulders.
Yeah.
That gives you just an impression of how much size plays into it, and to the point where Marc-Andre was asked in a media conference last week if he could take one skill from Robin Leonard, what would he take? And his first answer was, "Can I take size? I know it's not a skill, but can I take size? It's such an advantage."
It would be really interesting to see, and that was actually a pretty good question. could Marc-Andre Fleury take a little bit of Leonard's game, and could Leonard take a little bit of Fleury's game to take their own individual games and raise them even higher? And it's depth for Leonard that is, to me, one of the great strengths. He fills that net, but he doesn't get too far out. And with Marc-Andre Fleury, when he is playing really well and the team isn't playing that great, I find he gets his depth, he gets a little bit too far out, and that allows teams
more aggressive, right?
Yeah, and that allows teams to go lateral. And I think the Washington Capitals, they feasted on that in the Stanley Cup final a few years ago. So if that depth can be, if Flower can always just kind of have his heels, make sure that he's in that blue ice rather than really extended beyond it. I think that's when he's his best. And but a lot of that comes from the team, the way the team's playing around him. If they're playing really well and he doesn't get into that, he's such a competitor, he will get into that mindset where I got to do a little more. And sometimes when you do too much, that causes an issue. I guess the less is more is. I'm big with the pearls today.
You
right?
are.
Wow.
Outstanding. Well, it's coming off a day off. You've had a chance to go and sort of refresh yourself.
Yes,
I
I went to the grocery store yesterday.
How was it? You wear a mask?
I got, of course, wear
Good.
a mask everywhere. I got some great, the raspberries and the blackberries at Albertsons. Mm-hmm. Fantastic.
Beautiful. I'm a blueberry guy. Next Gen camera, taking you inside practice. Hope you're enjoying these live streams. This is the 9th one. Really getting into no zone exits to start with here, as they develop and dip their toe into to probably more game-like simulations.
That mountain lion was up around your place.
Yes, at my daughter's school. In fact.
Seriously,
yeah.
I've gotten calls and texts from people all over North America saying, like, "Were you close to that mountain lion?" And I'm like, "Well, no, a couple neighborhoods over, but really close to Millard."
Okay, I'll admit, I walk my dogs to that school every morning and night. I was on that path. I didn't see the mountain lion. I wouldn't have known what to do if I had. But
yeah.
That where less is more when it comes to information was a really good thing that day. Hey, I want to talk to you a little bit about just a couple of scenarios that are playing their way around the National Hockey League. And one question that we're getting a lot of from the broadcast side is what it's going to look like, how we're going to approach it, and what the fans are going to experience when they watch a game in either Toronto or Edmonton.
Well, there's a big press conference or Zoom call tomorrow, actually. Steve Mayer, Chief Content Officer for the National Hockey League, is going to walk people through a lot of that. But we are hearing a ton of things right now. They've asked teams, if you're the home team, your anthem singer, they've recorded it. That you're going to, so O Canada or the Star Spangled Banner will be performed by your anthem singer when you're the home team. So it'll be recorded and you'll get to hear it in the arena. And then if you're the home team, some of the wrinkles from your game production will be involved in the game. And that'll be for the players, and it'll also be for the fans at home. The National Hockey League.
So Cornell will be singing the anthem.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Like I just read a story in The Athletic by Joe Smith, and John Cooper was talking about how he came to the rink one Saturday before Phase 3 started, and was going to his office, and out on the ice they had their anthem singer recording the anthem. And I know the Carolina has a bunch of the Ric Flair woos recorded. I don't do that very well.
Woos?
Maybe if I've had a couple glasses of wine, I could do it a little bit better. But
come on, what are you holding back for? We're live streaming practice.
Woo! There you go.
There we go.
Now everyone's going to wonder if I had a special coffee.
That was really good. Well, the Cannon in Columbus.
They have something for that, yeah, for sure.
So they're trying to take what is unique to each building, and put it in there for the players and for those watching on TV as well.
Yeah, and then I also think that they're gonna have more players and coaches mic'd than normal, and they often have those guys mic'd. But we now know that there is going to be a 5-second delay because they're like, it's going to be live. It's not going to be packaged stuff where they would record it in the first period and then play it to you during the intermission. Some of the mic stuff is going to be happening in real time. So they've put a 5-second delay on it so that if somebody says darn or worse than that.
You don't want, see, this is where I'm going to hold you back. I encouraged you with the boo.
Yeah, you don't want me to drop an F-bomb?
No, I'm going to.
No problem.
But I have a buddy who's going to be a censor.
Yes.
In the Toronto games. I said, you got to really follow the book here, because it can't just be because your idea of what a bad word is and my idea.
Well, yeah, I guess it's the FCC, I think, in the United States, and in Canada, it's
CRTC.
The CRTC. They have really strict rules, and boy, oh boy, you wouldn't want to get a game knocked off the air because somebody made a censor mistake. So I think you probably edge on the side of caution on that one.
Would you like to do that job?
Nope. No, I like the job I have.
You got to think fast on the whole censor thing. You got 5 seconds to.
I have enough trouble censoring myself.
So what's something from the Fortress that you would like to see transitioned and be part of the game presentation in Edmonton?
Well, I love the drum line. I think that it is fantastic. I think Carnell is, I've really come to enjoy his work. I think he's one of the best in the National Hockey League. That John Wick that they play at certain points in time, I really think that's incredible. So I guess if I really had my choice, what would I like? I'd like the Golden Knights fans. I have said this. It's become one of my favorite things about working in Vegas. The Golden Knights fans, they go to the game and it's like they're all singing and dancing in the shower and no one's watching. They are uninhibited. They have they just really add such an aspect to the game. The players are obviously the first star of any game, but the fans in Vegas are the second star for me, and I will certainly miss them.
How about Marchessault scores in the tip in and then has the hands raised all the way back to center ice?
Yes. Yeah. Well, it tells you how rare a goal has been. I was asking. I think I was asking Shane about this, or maybe I was asking maybe it was Paul Stastny the other day. The fact that they have scored so little, so rarely in training camp, does that get in the mind of the shooters, and do they try and cut it a little bit finer, get cute by half, too cute by half, and does that get into their minds, or does it sharpen them? And Shane believes it sharpens them, it was Shane. He said that they'll bear down a little more, and every chance they get, they'll make sure they give it their best effort. So I also think players naturally, when it's not going in easily, they start going to the net. And that is the number one way to score in the National Hockey League for me, is to get to the net. And if that becomes a habit for them during this camp, that's a really good thing.
And part of our job is to keep track of other camps, and there's been a lot of goals scored in the various scrimmages in other camps. So it is truly unique. We're not making a mountain out of a molehill that isn't happening. That's happening everywhere else. It's different here with the low number of goals.
Absolutely, who's ahead in spring training? The pitchers or the hitters? Pitchers are usually ahead, right? Yeah. So and this has kind of been like that in the fact that the goaltenders have been a little bit ahead of the shooters here in Vegas anyways, and it'll be interesting to see how that translates when Vegas plays Arizona in their exhibition game. They just showed Peyton Krebs, and I was doing a radio program up in Canada prior to coming on, and they were asking me about Peyton. I'll ask you, like I had some intel from some folks in the Western Hockey League who raved about him prior to getting drafted, and then after he had his Achilles injury, the way he came back this year and really kind of just was took off as a player in the Western Hockey League. What have you thought of him?
Well, it's the vision.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether you can quantify that and how you really describe that, but when he has the puck and his ability to head up and then facilitate a pass and distribute that puck, that's what's been most impressive to me. Shooting, scoring, skating, all those kind of things, you can go, okay, he's had a good game. But that vision, he just seems to have a sixth sense.
Couple things for me. He was not here in phase 2. He did not skate with the rest of the group. And when they came out on the ice for the start of phase 3, he wasn't there. He didn't get here. He was in quarantine. He didn't get on the ice till Tuesday of last week. So it's just over a week now. So the rest of them were at such a high pace, and the execution was tremendous. Well, he stepped right in after having not skated with them at all in phase 2.
He was skating with NHLers at home.
Okay, just not to this degree.
No.
This has been.
I just wanted to say it wasn't like he was sitting on the couch, though.
No, for sure. But how many guys was he skating with? You know, and how organized was it? We saw what they were doing here, and there was a lot of skills work. There was some oversight. This was like a camp prior to phase 3. It was excellent. Anyways, he clicked right away with this group, and has no chemistry. You would think with these guys, he's never played with them. He wasn't at training camp last year. Right away fit in. They put him on the second unit of the power play. Looked really sharp out there. He, for me, and this will be very interesting, when Kelly McCrimmon and George McPhee, and I would imagine the coaching staff, when they pick who their depth players are going to be that are going to go to the bubble in Edmonton, I don't get a vote. If I did, Peyton Krebs is in the bubble for me.
2 players that are participating in phase 3 will not be able to go just based on roster numbers. They could take 31.
He's not one of those 2 in my book, for me.
We had the discussion about what you would take from the Fortress and implement in the game presentation in Edmonton. The night chant in the national anthem is one that on the Facebook account and the channel is getting a lot of, and that just makes it your own.
Yeah.
The Ric Flair thing is outstanding. There's just, and then you can't take that just madness, that nightclub feeling though. That's the one area that you can't transition from. To your point,
it's become. I've been lucky enough to be in every rink in the National Hockey League multiple times, and for a long time. And I used to always say that during the national anthem in Chicago, that was when that crowd really gets going into it. It was one of my that one gave me tingles. Being in the rink in Montreal for a playoff game, I was that barn could get really loud. What Winnipeg with its whiteout, but on a night in night out basis, what happens in Vegas is the best. If someone said to me, if an alien arrived tomorrow and said, I want to go watch a hockey game, I would not blink. Go watch a Vegas Golden Knights game at T-Mobile Arena. That is the best experience in hockey.
Would the alien have to quarantine?
No, you're the alien. You've already quarantined.
Scott on Facebook asking, championship teams often have an unsung hero that doesn't get talked about that has an impact on the playoffs. Who will have a similar impact for the Golden Knights?
Well, that's something I've been kind of thinking about, and there's a couple of guys. They just showed Paul Stastny, and Paul is not an unsung hero, but he's not. He doesn't get the same clippings as Carlson, Stone, Pacioretty, Marchessault, Theodore, Fleury. But I think Paul realizes that he doesn't have that many springs in the National Hockey League left. This is obviously summer, but normally the Stanley Cup is fought for in the spring. And I think he sees a big opportunity with this group. I think that the fact that the wear and tear of 82 games has been washed away, and now this is like November for him, fresh and feeling great. I think Paul could have a really big impact. I love the top 9 in Vegas right now. I think that there's scoring on all 3 of those lines. I think that they're all could be a matchup problem for the opposition. And then you have that 4th line that is going to go out and force the opposition to do things faster than they want to do and make mistakes. Zach Whitecloud, Nick Waugh, those are guys that I think are going to become bigger names than they have been so far. Riley Smith, he just took a shot there. Like, we talk about how Mark Stone is underrated. Well, Riley Smith is sort of like, he's just not on anybody's list, and he's fantastic. Just a great player, both ends. Was going to be a 30-goal guy this year.
And his 5-on-5 play is outstanding.
And he's one of the best penalty killers in the NHL. There's not much not to like about Riley Smith.
Can I throw Nate Schmidt into that conversation?
Sure.
And I know he's not unsung per se, but he plays on your arguably your top pairing. But I think he could be a guy that, at least from a goal scoring perspective, I think has another level and could take it to another level in the playoffs. And I'll throw Ryan Reeves individually in for somebody who bangs and keeps people in line. There's none of that out here, but he's had a really good 8.5 days.
2 years ago, when he came into training camp and he just blew the testing away. Ryan worked really hard in the offseason, and he had a great start to that season. Last year, he came in and he tweaked. He had a small injury, an off-ice injury just before camp started, and that resulted in a little bit of a slower start. While he is back in perfect condition, he really used the pause to improve his foundation and his fitness. I think you're right. I think Ryan might be an X factor off the hop.
No Pacioretty out on the ice with the Golden Knights in this skate. Pete DeBoer did offer the insight that it's not COVID related, and I saw an interview with George McPhee yesterday where he is optimistic that Pacioretty will be back in time for the game. So positive news there, but this is the second workout, 3 days that we don't see Max Pacioretty on the ice.
Yeah, which is obviously unfortunate. Max is a big piece around here, but there's also, we're not playing games here, and if the decision is to skip a little bit of training camp so that you can be 100% once the games start. That's
like they did with Marc-Andre at the start of phase 3.
That's the way you go. This is the time to make sure you can get people back to optimum health and be ready to go when things start.
The cool down will follow this training camp bulletin presented by Station Casinos. Mike McKenna will join us. Hopefully we're working on being able to talk to a player in that segment as well. So stick around for that. We'll also dive into the penalty kill and the power play. When I say it, we're hopeful to talk to a player. Our producer, Gordon, is standing by over here saying, I better get to work on that. Facebook check-ins. Pat is in Henderson, Connie in St. Louis, Suzanne in Toronto. Thank you for joining us in this training camp bulletin presented by Station Casinos. Mark Stone taking part in training camp. The flow is still going. I thought we might see it cut back a little bit, but I think this might be his playoff look.
Yeah, sure.
I love it. Coming out the side, the wings.
Somebody tweeted yesterday if you could bring back one thing, what would it be? And my response was my hair. So there's no flow for me.
That is channeling Daniel Alfredson of the Ottawa Senators, circa 2000s.
Bobby Clark for me. He's a good Manitoba boy.
Mark Stone could play without a helmet because he's got that big flow. That would be beautiful flying down the wall. Kyle in Illinois also watching on YouTube. Enrique in Norway. And David in Nova Scotia. Thank you for being part of this broadcast. Questions, comments, fire them away. Gary Lawless is here making sure that he can answer each and every one of your questions. I'm going to fire one at you right now.
Give it to me.
Hart Trophy nominees came out.
Yeah.
Leon Draisaitl, Nathan McKinnon, and Artemi Panarin.
Well,
if you had a vote.
I really liked your response to this. If I had a vote, and I had a vote for a long time, I probably would have voted for Draisaitl. I think he probably has earned the Hart, but I think that you could give it's the Ted Lindsay, right, that the players vote on?
Yeah.
To me, if McKinnon got the Ted Lindsay from the players, and Draisaitl got the Hart from the Hockey Writers, that would be a real good situation. Although, like Artemi Panarin,
that may never happen again, where a team has two different players win the respective MVPs, one voted by the players, one voted by the.
I said McKinnon. I didn't say McDavid.
Oh, I thought you said McDavid.
No, McKinnon. No, I think Nathan McKinnon, for what he has done in Colorado. You look at the difference between him and the rest of his teammates.
43 points between first and second.
That's that's an incredible gap. And Nathan McKinnon is he's a top 10 player in the NHL for me. He could turn a game on its head. If you watched that series against Calgary last year, that was all Nathan McKinnon. He was fantastic.
People looking at Edmonton saying McDavid can win the Hart Trophy every year, and Draisaitl jumps into it this time around. Like that's an embarrassment of riches.
Two pretty good players, that's for sure.
And didn't play together all the time. So
that's
your
McKinnon
argument.
was injured for McDavid was injured for a long stretch, and Draisaitl kind of listen. I think that if Dave Tippett's not a Coach of the Year candidate, then for me, Draisaitl has to kind of be the Hart guy, because they went from the outside looking in to being a contender all in one season. And McDavid missed a ton due to injury, and Draisaitl had to really, offensively carry that team on his own.
Forecheck drills, seeing a couple of bumps, a couple of encounters, players falling to the ice after some physical contact. I wonder, day 9, so we're going to be like 12 days of practices before they get to Edmonton. They're going to be ready to see somebody else, aren't they?
Well, I would imagine they are right now. It's it'll be interesting to see what Pete DeBoer does. I'm not sure they'll skate on Saturday. I think that probably one last off day before you get on the plane. That's not scheduled right now, but I think that's just something that I would be guessing about. And then, I think kind of maybe get away from scrimmage at some point in time and work on more skill stuff and keep the pace up. But you don't want anybody getting banged into right now and getting hurt. Like you've gotten your level up right now, and the next you gotta wait for it to be live now and have a real opponent.
That first 15 minutes against the Arizona Coyotes in the exhibition game will be unlike any exhibition game that we've seen from this group. Yeah,
Paul Stastny said it the other day. He said someone's going to get run over early on, and that's going to drag everybody else into it. And I would imagine, that fourth line, Reeves, Carrier, and is it Nosek in the middle today? It has been Nick Cousins, but they're going to
Cousins might be up playing with the Stone line today.
Exactly.
Because of
that's what I'm trying to. Yeah, it's Nosek. They're going to do their thing, and if they have an opportunity to belt somebody from the Coyotes early on, they will, and that would probably get Rick Tocchet to say to his guys, "It's a hockey game. Let's get into it." That will be it's going to be competitive right from the start.
So that line starts the games like Pete DeBoer was starting the bang line.
Maybe not. Maybe they don't start that game. That would kind of be like putting Ogie Oglethorpe out there in your lineup card right off the bat. I'm not sure DeBoer does that, but that's a bit of a signal, isn't it? Now maybe it's just a reward.
It's like the running of the bulls. Like just get out of the way because they're going.
Or maybe it's a little bit of a reward. Maybe he thinks they did a great job in phase 2 and phase 3 and wants to reward them as the return to play starts. But I think that would be. It doesn't take much to get Rick Tocchet riled up. I'm not sure you want to wave the red flag at him right off the bat.
Ogie Oglethorpe, there's a good reference. Slapshot fame.
Well, I lived in Thunder Bay for 5 years, so I've heard a lot of the Ogie stories. That's for sure.
Because the character that Ogie Oglethorpe was based off of was just outside of Thunder Bay. Grew up just outside of Thunder.
Bill Goldthorpe, yes, yeah. So, there's a great hockey tradition in that town, and they like their hockey tough. When I covered a team there, it was the Colonial Hockey League. You're speaking of Slapshot. Basically, I started in the Federal League. It was they had Bruce Ramsey and Mel Engelstad on that team, and they're two of the toughest guys you'd ever come across. And Mel Engelstad was a defenseman, and often for the first face-off of a weekend series, he would come out, skate out, he'd be on the blue line, and then he'd skate up and tap the forward and say, "You go back there," and then he'd line up against the winger and say to the guy, we're going to get this started. And they right off the opening draw. They don't do that anymore. Those were what you called the staged fights. They don't take place very often anymore.
I just read the book, The Real Ogie, the life story of Glenn Goldthorpe.
Yep.
He came by. That character came by it very honestly, from the Slapshot movie to the real life of Goldie.
Eric DeHatchick wrote a story, went and tracked him down a few years ago and wrote a great story about him and his life, and it was fascinating stuff. He wasn't allowed to be in the movie, which was he was disappointed that
he wasn't invited.
It didn't work out for him, and that's still something that he's kind of disappointed about.
Not many people can make the transition from Hart Trophy finalists to Ogie Oglethorpe and Goldie Goldthorpe, but we've done it here on the Training Camp Bulletin presented by Station Casinos. From Studio 31, we're overlooking the Summerlin Hospital rink. I hope you're enjoying the camera work and of our crew via the Next Gen camera. Shea Theodore working his way through. Boy, if he can get anywhere close to the level of play that we witnessed in the second half of this season. Roman Yossi's a first-time Norris Trophy finalist, and Shea Theodore was every bit as good or maybe a bit better in the second half of the season. Shea was on a career high when it came to the level of his game. I love the way this drilled. It's almost like a game that you play in the schoolyard where you come together at the blue line and then turn back, but action at both ends where they're able to simulate a game-type situation. We'll take you down to the rink and let you just listen. We'll step back and let you be a fan in the stands for a couple of minutes here at City National Arena, Summerlin Hospital Rink, via the Next Gen camera. This is Training Camp Bulletin, presented by Station Casinos. Coverage by the Next Gen camera of City National Arena and the Summerlin Hospital Rink. As the Vegas Golden Knights go through their 9th skate here in Phase 3 of training camp. I call it 2.0 because it's kind of a weird time in this world. Heading off to Edmonton, the hub city, on Sunday and playing that first exhibition game against the Arizona Coyotes on July 30th. That's another thing you try and get in your head. Months.
Yeah.
It's automatic. Darren Millard here along with Gary Lawless. Just had a question come in via Facebook. Adam wants to know, just on picking up on the Shea Theodore discussion, if Shea Theodore can dominate a tournament like this.
Absolutely. Shea Theodore is really, he's one of the top 10 offensive defensemen in the National Hockey League. And the addition of Alec Martinez has really, kind of, I think, made that their number one pairing. And, Martinez can keep up, he can move the puck, but he can give Shea that green light where, you know what, go do what you need to do, and I'll be here to make sure that we're not caught in the 2-1-0 or a breakaway situation. I'll keep home base covered. You can go and freelance a little bit. And Shea is, you watch him skate. It's the finer things. It's lots of guys can transport the puck. They can grab the puck behind their own net and use their skating ability to get up ice. It's what they do when they get to the offensive blue line that really makes a difference. And Shea, because he does everything with his head up and never looks at the puck, he looks around the ice and surveys everything around him, he creates offense. The play doesn't end when he gets to the blue line. It just gets started there. So a very special player, and if you're not ready to go when Shea Theodore has the puck and has an opportunity, he'll make you look silly.
He has the added element of being able to beat a defender one-on-one, which not a lot of defensemen. It's hard to do as a forward in the National Hockey League, but he's really adept at that.
Yeah, I think we needed to really tip our caps to Ryan McGill here because, this was a player. The Anaheim Ducks decided that they would rather have Josh Manson, who's a really good player, than Shea Theodore. They left this player exposed. And I know that for a fact that, Shea struggled in Anaheim. The head coach in Anaheim, Randy Carlyle, a former Norris Trophy winner, he wanted certain things out of Shea that maybe Shea wasn't ready to give, and then he'd get sent down to San Diego to the American Hockey League, where Dallas Aikens was the coach, and Dallas would have to rebuild him. And Ryan did it all here in Vegas. One of the things that the players all talked about, Shea in particular with Ryan, was when I made a mistake, I wasn't afraid to come back to the bench. I wasn't going to get blasted. I was going to get instruction. This is what you did wrong. And then I was going to get thrown right back out onto the ice again to try again. And like this, he is, he wasn't in the Norris conversation this year, but from December 9th on, top 5 in the league in scoring amongst defensemen. And he is going to be in a Norris conversation at some point in time in his career. And
I said, if you take the second half of last season and the second half of this season, he's right there for the trophy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think next year, playing with Martinez all the time, I think a couple of things happened for him. He went to the World Championships last year, and Alain Vigneault flat out, he was our best defenseman and one of our best players. Mark Stone was probably our best player. I think they're both going to be Olympians for Canada. I think they're going to have, Mark Stone, an automatic for me to play for Team Canada in 2022. And I bet you by that time, Shea Theodore is one of the top 8 defensemen amongst all Canadian-born defenders. I think he's really going to have an opportunity to play for Canada in the Olympics. And just a lot of growth from him. The World Championships, he went there and he took his game to another level, and then they discovered he had cancer. And I think that he didn't train last summer. He fought cancer, and I think that kind of affected him coming out of the gate this year. But by Christmas time, or just by December, he was going at a different level. And then when they brought in Martinez and they brought in DeBoer also has had an impact in the fact that he's kind of said, "You're the guy."
He's coached those players before, right? The high-end offensive guys.
Yes, but if Shea is ready, Shea's number gets called. He's started to play more minutes than the rest of the guys.
I don't think he's ever going to get to the point where like Burns and Carlson are playing in San Jose. Do you think? Because of the depth.
Hopefully not, because you don't win a Stanley Cup that way.
On the subject of Theodore, I love your point about Alec Martinez. Because Martinez played with Matt Green in Los Angeles, who's a defensive defenseman. So Martinez was the more looked upon as the offensive guy in that. And he also dabbled a little bit with Drew Doughty, where he's on the other side.
Yeah.
So he's a real hybrid type player that can slot in any type of role that you need.
Yeah, to me, he's not an offensive defenseman and he's not a defensive defenseman. He's the perfect complement to Shea Theodore.
As we see the two of them battle.
Yeah.
In front of the net. Going through some battle drills under the supervision of Ryan McGill, assistant coach, who handles the defensemen on the Vegas Golden Knights with his coaching staff, guided by Pete DeBoer, Steve Spott, Ryan Craig, round out the coaching staff with Mike Rosati, the goaltending coach, working both ends right now. They've been going just under an hour so far. The cool down coming up after this skate. Mike McKenna will stop by and we'll dive a little bit more into the specifics of the special teams and how they've been tweaked in this phase 3 and training camp. We were talking about movies a little bit and want to make sure that we follow up on these questions that we've had sent to us. Favorite hockey movie? What do you think? Your favorite hockey movie of all time?
Oh, Slapshot. There's, Youngblood.
Yeah, Youngblood gets
a
lot.
It's a distant second for me. I'm going with, without question, it is Slapshot.
I'll throw Miracle in there.
Yeah, Miracle's good too, sure. Yeah, I'm Canadian, so, it was a miracle. It was a miracle, all right.
Well, and there was 2 versions of Miracle too. So, 1 gold, 2 movies.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, Gordon's saying move on from that. You're watching
Mystery Alaska. That's a good one.
That was great. Just the way they get to the rink in that is something
Yes.
of, and I maintain, and I don't know whether this had any connection, but you know how they went from the dressing room, the clubhouse in Mystery Alaska, down to the rink?
Yeah.
I think that was the formation, the groundwork for the Crashed Ice series, where they started up high and they 4 people, skaters, race down the ice to a finish line.
Favorite, we'll do 2 others here. Okay. Favorite hockey song and favorite hockey book.
Or the game, which we just read as part of the VGK book club.
It's on my list. It's not my number 1.
Although this is off the beaten path. Brett Hull wrote a biography.
Oh yeah.
Early on in his career.
Yeah.
And it's a great one.
Okay.
And it was the St. Louis Blues, and it was before Mike Keenan took over the St. Louis Blues. And in his book, he was talking about playing under Sutter. And he said, "Can you imagine if they ever hired Mike Keenan?" And that was in his book. And what happens is they hired Mike Keenan. So that's one of them. And
Scrubs on skates for me.
Yeah, I kind of moved on from that.
No. The whole series.
Stomp and Tom, the hockey song was
Big League for me. Yeah. Tom Cochran's Big League is my favorite hockey song.
Redone too. Rascal Flatts, who did it? Doc Walker. Redid it.
Yeah, Doc Walker. That makes sense.
There's Marc-Andre Fleury scrambling, laying out, paying the price. And who's right in the middle of that again?
Yes.
Chirpman, Jonathan Marchessault. So Scrubs on skates and Big League.
Yeah, that whole series, I read that when I was a young guy. Scott Young was he's Neil Young's father, and Scott Young was actually the sports columnist at the Winnipeg Free Press. And when I got that job, my mother he'd written another book, A Writer's Life, and my mother went to a book signing and got him to sign it, and she said to him, "My son is a sports writer. His name's Gary Lawless," and he said, "Yeah, he's got my job." Yeah, I like that story. So Scrubs on skates, what's the series? It's Scrubs on Skates, Boy on the Fence, Boy at the Leafs Camp, which is actually set in my hometown of Peterborough, Ontario. And then he wrote another one called That Old Gang of Mine, which was he took all the guys from the series.
Oh, that would have been good. I've never read that.
They got together as adults and played for Team Canada in an international tournament.
Really?
Yeah.
Boys getting back together.
Yeah, there was divorce and alcoholism and all kinds of these mature themes
Life
weaved into it. So it was for like the people that had read the series originally, which was the first one is set in Winnipeg in the high school hockey league there, and they moved it, they kind of moved it forward 40 years. So it was interesting.
Love that.
Yeah,
that is my project for today. Is to track that one down. Who doesn't like a follow-up?
You just have to drive over to my house and I'll take it off the shelf for you.
Can you bring it in tomorrow?
Nope.
We got another training camp bulletin presented by Station Casinos. Jonathan Marchessault chatting with Pete DeBoer. Mike McKenna has made his way into the studio.
All right,
Kenny's
here.
So
we're getting the left arm warmed up.
We're going to send you out and just there's always kind of neat little things happening at the end of a practice. So we'll let you enjoy a little bit of that. We'll get set for the cool down with Mike McKenna coming up next. Our thanks to Gary Lawless and everybody watching via the live stream on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube. All following along. It's been a lot of fun today. We'll chat with you in 2 minutes. Day of training camp. 9 times the Golden Knights have been on the ice, and as those numbers grow, the amount of time before Phase 4 and the arrival in the hub city continues to dwindle. The Vegas Golden Knights will be on their way to Edmonton on Sunday. We're in the final stretch of training camp 2.0 here at City National Arena, Summerlin Hospital Rink. Welcome into Studio 31 for the cool down. Darren Millard along with Mike McKenna. They're back on the ice today after a day off. You were out in the rink watching, as Gary and I commented over top of practice. Observations?
Well, just again, getting back into the swing of things. Lots and lots of puck movement, a lot of play down low again. So again, it's just a general progression to what they've been doing. Not as much having no scrimmage time today like we've seen previously, just much more in your regular practice role. So, days like this, you're getting into your routine. back to practice, back to your line mates, making crisp passes, crashing the net. So just kind of a general practice day.
Focused at the first part, a lot of zone exits out of their defensive zone.
Yeah, it's something, again, that under Pete DeBoer has been something that's a critical point of emphasis. You've got to be able to exit your zone quickly, and the Golden Knights have done a great job of that under Pete DeBoer. You see the speed that they can play with. Having those defensemen that can move their feet on top of the forwards who can fly too, when you've got Theodore, Martinez, Schmidt who can really skate, it just makes it so much easier for your teammates. And it's no fun on the defensive side, when they're coming at you 100 miles an hour like the Golden Knights have been today, but it bodes well for them in the future. Some
battle drills at the end of practice, primarily with the defensemen in front of the net.
Yeah, you're trying to establish position, and they're just getting their feel in. You come off of a long break like this, and you don't have that game feel of the bumps in front of the net and establishing position and learning how to lean on bodies again, right? That's the hard part is that, hey, I know I'm strong enough. These guys have been all lifting weights in their own home gyms and in the garage, but they haven't actually moved a body in front of the net on skates or tried to gain that position. So it's just those little things getting back into the normal roll of game time.
So follow up to that, from a cardiovascular point of view, everybody's in great shape. From a strength point of view, that they're on top of the game. But there's attrition, there's wear down in every Stanley Cup playoff when you get to the second, third, fourth round, and it takes its toll. Is that heightened this year? Because one, you've got 5 rounds, and 2, you're not coming off a regular season, or am I reading too much into it?
I don't think you are at all. I think it's really the great unknown here, and it's funny, like Frozen 2 came out not too long ago, and you having children as well, I'm sure you've probably seen the movie, but there's a song, Into the Unknown, and it feels like when I talk to my kids and my family, that's everything we're talking about here. I do think coming off of a long pause like this, there is a chance for injury, more so than ever before, because the bodies aren't used to it again. Thankfully, they've had a long runway with camp time to do it.
But not just injury, just fatigue.
Yeah.
Wear down.
For sure.
And everybody's going to be gangbusters in that first round.
No question.
Or the round robin. But to make sure for teams like the Vegas Golden Knights that have aspirations beyond that, there's going to have to be real maintenance and be conscious of that.
Right, and that's part of going into the hub, something that, again, it's new, it's the unknown. They've got to learn how to take care of themselves in the hotel room sometimes. I believe it was Alec Martinez the other day who said, hey, I've got to make sure that I need he didn't maybe say foam roller, but just things that you need in the room that he can do to prepare his body. But there is going to be a fatigue factor because they're playing games in such close order now. It's not a game, day off. You're going to see a lot of hockey really fast. And look at the lineup of anybody who's ever won a Stanley Cup. It's not just the 18 guys you start with, the 20 guys. It's depth, and that's part of the reason why the Golden Knights have been so inclusive of 5 lines, 6 lines worth of players, 8D, 10D during this camp.
I was thinking TRX or pull-up bar, something along that line when he was talking about maintenance things and different pieces of equipment.
Sure shows that he's thinking at kind of next level,
yeah,
right?
But foam rollers, that's good. Did you take something with you on the road when you played?
I was surprisingly low maintenance in terms of my body. Maybe not other things, I guess, but I didn't need to do as much. My routine was really just more based on stretching at night. I would usually take just 10, 15 minutes to loosen up and make sure that my body was comfortable before bedtime. Some guys are very different. Some guys will have a foam roller in the room. They've got different sticks with these, little appendages to try to be able to work things out of their body to get them comfortable with their muscles. For me, I was pretty simple. I didn't need a lot, but I was also really lucky that I didn't battle injuries. That's almost unheard of. I never missed a game due to an injury. So I didn't have to do as much rehab as a lot of guys do, or prehab, they'll call it, prehab, just trying to make sure that you don't end up getting injured. So it's become a huge part of today's game.
They're cleaning the ice, players making their way back onto the surface at Summerlin Hospital Rink here at Sydney National Arena. This is the cool down. Hope you're enjoying our coverage as we live stream all the workouts here in Phase 3 of the Vegas Golden Knights prior to their departure for Edmonton and the hub city for the Western Conference playoffs, and then the conference final where the Eastern Conference will come over to Edmonton, and the Stanley Cup final will be played at Rogers Place in Edmonton. Did you play any games there?
I never played, but I backed up.
Okay.
As you could, I mean, I guess it's no surprise, right? I did a lot of that, but
No, I wasn't where I was going, but I'm just curious, how different it's a fairly new rink, 4 years old. How different is that rink in any quirks that you can think of?
The newer rink, I'm not sure. The rinks themselves these days are really, they're so cookie cutter in some ways. You walk into a rink and it's like Groundhog Day sometimes. Like, are we in Pittsburgh?
Except for the Fortress.
Oh no, we're in New Jersey.
The Fortress is a challenge for players to make their way around and find the rink. For some reason, people get lost in there all the time.
Yeah, and it's the Fortress and Staples Center are really similar buildings. They're kind of built off one another like that. But you know it once the puck drops in the Fortress, though.
Yes.
I mean, I go back to talking to Mark Stone when we were with Ottawa as teammates a year and a half, 2 years ago, and he said to me, he's like, that's the best place, because it was the one I was missing. I hadn't dressed a game in Vegas. He's like, it's the best.
Did you get it?
No.
No.
But guess who ended up in Vegas afterwards, a couple months later?
Dressed up in Vegas enough. What do you think of the idea of in-game presentation being transferred to the two hub cities? So you'll have a piece of the Vegas in-game presentation of the Fortress or Columbus in Toronto, that kind of thing, and implementing little things like national anthem singers or whether it maybe the drum line is out there. I don't know whether that's going to be the case or not, but little pieces of each in-game presentation that you'd find at the home rink being part of the presentation in Edmonton.
I'm all for it, but I'm not sure how I feel about the cannon from Columbus.
That's not taking the full cannon, though. Some people have thought that they're transporting the whole cannon up there. They're not doing that.
It's currently on a flatbed crossing Saskatchewan right now.
Take the wheels off.
I think that's great. The opportunity to have, if Carnell, the Golden Pipes, can come in and sing the anthem over the big screen, or some of the personalized things to each building that players and fans love, that's fantastic. What I don't particularly like would be crowd noise, just generalized noise. That's not big to me. I've played in buildings that they pump that in, and it's kind of weird. But to be able to really personalize it and cater to each team, because every rink and every team, their fans and the game presentation have its own quirks that the players love. It's comfort, you know?
Carnell with the night chant in the middle of the anthem.
Yep.
It'd
be great to have.
Players are back on the ice with their numbered and names on the back of the sweater, so it looks like we're going to be getting a bit of a scrimmage here in the second half of the workout, so that's good. And I think Logan Thompson.
There's a debut about to happen here, isn't there?
Who's joined the Vegas Golden Knights organization, signed last week, is not eligible for the games in Edmonton, but is here just to distribute the goaltending work.
He's wearing the glove on the proper hand. It's nice to see. It's on his right hand.
Well, we speaking of gloves, Marc-Andre is wearing the gold glove that he was wearing with that set that he was wearing. Sort of got him jump-started again.
Right, it did. He had to shut out the
back
first
to the
game
good
back.
vibes with it, but only the glove, not the.
It's strange.
So any intel? Anything
well,
here?
I've really been keying in on it.
Is it a new glove,
you can
just
imagine.
with those colors?
And that's
or?
what I can't tell.
Yeah.
What happens with goalie equipment is, as you know too, being goalie, that the darker the equipment, you can't see the puck marks as well. So I've been really trying to eye in and see if there's many puck marks on that glove, or maybe it's one he had in stock. That I know Marc-Andre's someone who likes to wear the same equipment, the way it's built at least, right? Colors are one thing.
Now he's gone back to the other one.
Yeah, right. So I know he's got a big stock of the equipment that he loves right now, ready to go, so that he can continue on with it. I just couldn't really tell whether that glove was new or not, whether he was breaking it in or whether he was just switching off. Sometimes we'll go through 2 or 3 gloves in practice or in a game just because we want to have something dry on our hands.
A lot of work on the special teams in the second segment of Phase 3. So they practiced 4 times, and they did a lot of just transitional work, cardio, getting back into getting touches, getting a feel for it, and a little bit of scrimmaging. In the first 4 practices, took a day off. The second segment was a lot of special teams work and the first formal scrimmage, and then a day off, and now we're into the third segment. So on that special team side of things, they made some changes to both the power play and the penalty kill, and we've got both power plays as they're set up now, the 2 different groups that Pete DeBoer and Steve Spott, Ryan Craig will utilize. What have you seen change from before the pause?
Well, I think what you're seeing now is deployment will be one. There's really the first power play unit that's got Stone, Pacioretty, and Theodore on the back end to it. they're not doing anything different in terms of the way they're going to actually get the puck to net. As you can see here, Carlson down the middle with them. But Marchessault really, to me, watching these practices, has been utilized a lot in the middle. You know, there's the setup nowadays for power plays is generally what they would call 1-3-1. You know, there's one guy at the net front, 3 guys lined up through the middle, 1 up top. The guy up top would be Shea Theodore running the point. But Marchessault's really been active in the middle. They're trying to use him as what you would say a bumper guy, not just for shots, but to distribute pucks too. And then on the second power play unit, you know, it's 2 defensemen, which hadn't always been the case. The first power play unit is running 1. Martinez and Schmidt, though, they've got free reign to move around. Again, similar setup to that. But tuck in front of the net, that's great to have. Stastny low, Smith distributing. But, you know, I think you're really going to see an opportunity for that first power play unit to grab hold. When you talk to other teams, that's one of their first priorities in trying to shut down the Golden Knights is that they have to take into account the power play. It's stacked. When you've got Max Pacioretty as the trigger man, what does that do? It inherently creates lanes for the other players. You know, any team that has a great power play always has one guy, it feels like, whether it's Stamkos in Tampa or Ovechkin in Washington. That's the hammer. Well, when that guy can pass the puck, it's an added benefit. And Max Pacioretty this year, his distribution has been fantastic. He has almost as many assists as goals too. So it's opened up space for him.
Some clubs, and the Golden Knights fell under this umbrella, went with a power play approach of 2 different units that almost split the time. You get to your minute, 55 seconds,
right.
You switch, the other unit comes on for a look. Others, Washington, for example,
yep.
That number 1 unit, especially Ovechkin, stays out for the entire 2 minutes.
Right.
And the other unit may get a couple of seconds. I sense a bit of a transition with Vegas.
I agree with you, and it kind of brings me back. You mentioned that. I played with the New Jersey Devils when Ilya Kovalchuk was there. He'd just go the full 2 minutes. He never came off.
For good reason.
Sure. I mean, he was a dynamo, but it's similar to what you're seeing here. There is a distinct drop-off between the first and second power play unit in terms of production over the course of this season for the Golden Knights. So you want to have your horses on the ice, and especially Shea Theodore to me. You know, he's generated 35% of his points on the power play. Secondary assists, a lot of it, rebound opportunities. He's so good at getting the puck through. You want to have your best players out there. And that's no knock on Alec Martinez, Nate Schmidt. They've played power play previously. But their point totals aren't quite the same as they would be for Shea. And he's really blossomed in so many different areas, especially in the power play for this season.
2 questions. Shea Theodore being the only defenseman on the ice on the first power play unit, that's almost like 4.5 forwards.
Yep.
Any concern about that just defensively?
I don't think there is at all. You know, there's so many teams in the league that run that type of setup, and as well as Shea Theodore skates. You know, if he is the one-man back at the top of the line, he has the ability to close gaps and to shut things down. And ultimately, too, when you have your 5 best players on the ice, when you have Carlson, Stone, Pacioretty, they're able to possess the puck a lot.
I love the aggressiveness. I'd love to see 5 forwards at times. If whatever your team makeup
fun
is,
to talk about.
if it leans towards that,
Yeah.
Certainly.
Well, the other aspect, too, is with the second unit, you've got both defensemen out there. And generally when a power play ends, it's a good deal to have 2 guys out there. So having Schmidt, Martinez, that's an added benefit to that as well.
And traditionally, you put the big body in front of the net.
Mm-hmm.
With Jonathan Marchessault, that's not the case. So what's the advantage to putting Marchessault there?
Well, you know, having him kind of the higher guy,
I guess he's not really in front of the net.
He's
more
not,
middle.
but Jonathan Marchessault, his strength, though, we see a lot. He tips a lot of pucks. He's got great hand-eye skills.
Yeah, we saw it here in practice today.
Right, you know, and he doesn't do it right in front of the net by creating screens. He does it higher towards the high slot where he'll make those tips at the hash marks or just slightly under. So it's not just that he's got a threat with his shot. That hand-eye comes into play for him. Paul Stastny can go right into that role as well. He's good at it. And it's different than you would think of Alex Tuck. Big body. You want him right in the goalie's eyes. So again, you play to your team's strengths, you play to the size and their particular skill sets, and you try to put them in the best place possible for their success.
After a full practice, a flood, and now the players and coaching staff will go through a scrimmage to wrap up this 9th day of the skating. 5-on-5 scrimmage at City National Arena at Summerlin Hospital Rink. The goaltenders are Marc-Andre Fleury and Robin Leonard. Offside. You notice nobody argues with the offside call when it's one of your coaches blowing the whistle.
Ryan Craig's gotten a great workout during this camp, hasn't he? He's been running a lot of the drills as a referee at times, too. The Golden Knights haven't had referees on the ice. That got nixed by the league because some teams were having them during scrimmages. So Ryan Craig's filled that role.
And that's just a protocol issue. You try and keep your bubble as tight as possible.
Certainly, right, So Ryan Craig, I'm surprised he doesn't have his hat backwards for aerodynamics to get up and down the ice quicker, but I love that about practice. When you know somebody's offsides or close, you'll see the whole bench with their arm in the air.
Yeah.
Whether it is or isn't, that's one of the fun aspects of seeing practice is everybody calling for an offside, even if it isn't.
There was a puck flipped over the glass the other day into the out of play, and it was just a drill, and they all waved their arm for a penalty, like delay a game.
Right.
And it was just a drill. It's just instinct from these players. So this is a bit of scrimmage here. One observation when you look around the league is, I would say Vegas is certainly bottom third of the teams when it comes to the amount of time that they have scrimmaged or done formal scrimmaging. What do you think the thought process is there and the advantages to that?
Well, scrimmaging is great to have, but you also have to have your systems in place. There's that fine balance, and I'd hate to paint a box for what every single team needs. Pete DeBoer and his staff have obviously looked at and identified what they think is most important to it. But just having the structure of your game so ingrained that when you get into game sense like this, it's second nature. And again, with Pete DeBoer coming in 2/3 of the way through the season, halfway through, the system side of the Vegas Golden Knights was still a work in progress in a lot of ways, especially penalty kill and other things. So
I think he said that we were starting from the ground up again.
correct.
They were ahead of schedule physically,
Right.
coming out of phase 2, but he wanted to just build that base.
Yeah, and that's what the benefit of having a long training camp like this has been. Pete DeBoer and his staff, they said during the pause, they looked at other teams more than they usually would because they had so much time on their hands. But it also gave them that chance to really be introspective into what the Golden Knights were trying to accomplish and where they could improve in it. And you've seen it in the drills they've done. We touched on it just a little bit ago about zone exits. We've seen a ton of those from the Golden Knights during camp for good reason, because they want to play fast. They want to put the other team on their heels. And if you're proficient in getting out of your zone, you're going to be that much better through the neutral zone. And that's talking around the league too. Golden Knights, the first 2 seasons especially, were known as this incredible transition team. And this season, for the first half, they were a little hit or miss with it. Under Pete DeBoer, that changed. They started to get that back in their game where they're getting through the neutral zone so quickly and being able to put other teams on their heels.
Oh, Nick Hague with a trip.
Yeah. Oh, consternation.
And Mark Stone not happy with it. He gives him a slash back. I don't know how much they're laughing there. Probably more than we could see by just the looks of it. But day 9 of this phase 3. When do you become a little tired of doing these drills and these scrimmages with your own teammates, in the sense of things might get a little frisky?
Day 2. You play hockey to play against the other team. This is the drudge work that no player is going to tell you that they love going out and scrimmaging against their teammates. They love the game, they love the competition, but it's not the same as staring down an opponent face to face, knowing that person wants to beat you, and your job is to be better than them and to outcompete them. That's what we all play for.
They're talking about the puck going on a play.
We're calling for a penalty right here. It's Nate Schmidt, I believe, he's got his hand in the air. I love these moments, though. Like the other day I was out there, and Shea Theodore flubbed a point shot probably 3-4 feet wide. So if you're in the stands, you probably just think, oh, it's a wide shot. But to a player, when a puck goes that wide of the net, you notice it. And you can hear Jonathan Marchessault from the other side of the rink. Nice shot, Theo! And it just billowed through the whole building. That's the playful stuff that I miss as a player. It's just it's not the same as a situation like this. And it's so much fun, especially when you have someone like Marchessault out there who can light up an entire arena like that.
Chances at both ends. You see the pressure without the physical play, but you can still apply pressure and steal the puck. And Marc-Andre Fleury had to come up with a couple of big saves. And then at the other end, Riley Smith, a breakaway on Robin Leonard. That was denied.
It's interesting how, we've talked about there hasn't been a lot of scoring. And when I watch these games, and scrimmages, I should say, a lot of that to me is really just predicated on how the players don't want to hurt each other with shots. They don't want to take them from the middle. You don't want to sift pucks from the point and risk hitting a teammate in front of the net.
Have you seen any clappers?
And right, you haven't seen any. That's a great point there. And so, you get to a real game, and that's where guys will take those chances. They'll get to the front of the net. They'll shoot through traffic. There's very few goals in the NHL that are scored, one, without some type of screen or deflection, or two, not right on and off the stick. Most goals, the puck isn't on the player's stick for more than a half second. And in practice like this, and in scrimmage like this, you get to hold the puck a little bit longer. You don't have a player in your face right away.
Jimmy Schultz with a nice rush.
Yeah, and he's been very impressive in camp so far. He can scoot. I mean, it's something you get to pick up on when you watch these situations in a lot of scrimmaging. That's a player who can skate. You talk about mobile defensemen coming into their own. Jimmy Schultz fits that bill very well.
Scrimmage continues as you watch the Summerlin Hospital rink at City National Arena, taking in these views, sights, and sounds via the next-gen camera. Appreciate everybody's joining us on our social media channels, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter. It's been awesome watching the progression through the course of this training camp. We talked about the power play. The penalty kill has also featured a couple of different tweaks from what we witnessed from Pete DeBoer at the pause to this training camp, in particular Carlson and Smith put together as the penalty killing unit, which was has been a staple for the first couple of years.
The hashtag power kill. I mean, these guys have 5 goals between them on the season so far on the penalty kill. Now, they split up for a while. Why would you do that? Well, sometimes when you have 2 guys who are really good killers, you want to see if they can affect other people and improve their game as well.
And that was around where Pete took over, so just having a different look from a coach.
There's some experimentation, and especially because the penalty kill, quite frankly, wasn't very good for the Golden Knights this season. It's hovered 27th, 28th at times in the league. So when Pete DeBoer came in, he wanted to take a look, take stock at what he had in players. You come back to the analytics and you see that when you've got Smith and Carlson together on the penalty kill, they make the other team nervous. There's a mental aspect that these guys can score on us. It's not just that they kill penalties so well and that they're very aggressive on it, but the scoring chances go way down. So whenever Smith and Carlson are on the ice on the penalty kill, that takes away 14% of chances from the other club. That's the numbers this year. That's a huge amount when you think about it during a game.
From one penalty kill unit to another.
Correct. When compared to other people on the ice for the Golden Knights. So when those two are together, they double the team's scoring chances. You think of the penalty kill, the first goal to it is that you're trying to keep the puck out of your net. But again, that mental aspect of having 2 players at the other end that can come down the ice and do damage, you're not just thinking on the power play about scoring goals. You're thinking about, I can't make mistakes, or else we're going to have Riley Smith, Willie Carlson going the other direction on a 2-on-1. So putting them back together, it seems like it's a no-brainer, but and it is in a lot of ways, but splitting them up earlier, again, when you're trying to lift something, like the penalty kill that hadn't been good enough, it made all the sense in the world.
Another new look is Zach Whitecloud has received some reps on the penalty kill in training camp.
Yeah, Whitecloud, and he's done a lot of that previously. At the American Hockey League with the Wolves, he was one of their main killers. He's big, he's right-handed. That's important. It's a role that Derek Englund held for so long, because you need to have guys that can handle the puck on both sides, right? When they don't take face-offs as a defenseman, but they're able to dig a puck out of a corner. When it gets there, if you're both the same hand, one person's going to be on his backhand versus the other being on his forehand. So you want to have them offset so that they're always on their power side. If Zach Whitecloud, who's going to be paired on the right side most often, gets the puck on his forehand in the corner, what's he going to do with it? He's going to send it down the ice. That's an instant 15, 20 seconds off. We're seeing it right there, off the glass and out. So that's important. You need to have variety. And that's why right-handed defenders are the premium in the league, too. But it's not just Zach Whitecloud. Shea Theodore's taken reps as well on the penalty kill in camp here. Part of that is you need everybody. Think about it. We talked about earlier in our playoff run how you need so many people to win a Stanley Cup. You're not going to do it with 6 defensemen. That's just the reality of it. And let's say you lose 1 or 2 players during a game. There's injuries. Somebody's in the penalty box. Whatever it may be, you may need Shea Theodore out there to kill penalties. And on top of that, this is a guy who arguably has been the team MVP for at least the last half of the season. They generate so many scoring chances when he's on the ice. Because he's so fast, he's got great game sense. His puck retrievals are excellent. Just because he hasn't killed before doesn't mean he's not effective and able to do it now. You know, you used to think about penalty killers as the defenseman, you'd put the big burly guy in front of the net who just eat pucks. You know, the Ken Danicos who were just warriors. And the game's so much based on speed now that you want to have your best skaters on the ice at all the time if you can, so that you can have the puck. You want to control the puck and really force the other team to make plays, not just keep them to the outside like you used to on penalty kills and hope that they wouldn't score on those shots.
Much talked about line of Nick Waugh and Alex Tuck out there with Chandler Stevenson. They've had a strong scrimmage to date. A lot of offensive zone time.
I think they've been excellent all camp. I love that combination. And that's been the fun part of coming off this pause. 3 guys who have not played together seem to find instant chemistry. You know, and you're putting ingredients in a blender and hoping your smoothie turns out delicious. I mean, we've all made poor ones before that had great ingredients and it just didn't taste right, you know. These 3 guys,
he is more peanut butter. Just keep putting peanut butter in until.
And banana's a great equalizer sometimes too. Finding, you know, the sugars that you can put in, but there's a great mixture of skill sets on that line. I love it looking at it on paper right off the bat. Between Waugh and Tuck, those guys might be able to touch sticks that go completely across the ice. You know, that's a huge amount of reach, which is always at a premium in the NHL. And then Stevenson's speed. During the camp here, he's really been an engine for that line. He's on wing, but he was an engine for Pacioretty and Stone when he played with them as a centerman. And Nick Waugh was an engine for the 4th line on occasion, and then on the 2nd line when he needed to. And so you've got 2 guys who can really do that and distribute pucks and get it onto Alex Tuck's stick. You know, Alex Tuck, his strength is getting that puck wide, driving the net, using that big body of his. And now he's got a chance with those 2 players that can really hit him in stride and allow him that opportunity to get those boots going through the neutral zone and enter with speed.
Goaltenders switching nets. Looking at Chandler Stevenson, Alex Tuck, Nick Waugh.
There was a fun moment either yesterday or 2 days ago, I can't remember, but Robin Leonard hadn't allowed a goal, and he was instructed to go switch to the other end. And Ryan, assistant coach Ryan Craig came down and says, "All right, Lenny, other end." And you could hear him from the stands. He goes, "Why?" It was completely irreverent, but again, just another one of those funny moments where, hey, I've got a shutout going. Why am I switching ends here?
Did you keep score during scrimmages?
Oh yeah,
Yeah?
yeah. And only in competitive settings. Like when I play beer league now, I don't care what the score is, and all the guys on the bench could tell you exactly what it is. But when I was
but if you were in this,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm comparing it to like nowadays beer league. I couldn't care, but the moment my competitive switch would turn on to serious hockey that mattered, and to me, practice mattered as much as games. It really did. I was always trying to, frankly, beat my goalie opponent. And as much as you can be friends with them on the ice and off the ice, it's always a competition. You know, you want to be better. That's how you play. It's how you get better. So I always knew what the score was, and I'd always get rattled too. And inevitably, somebody from the other team would try to trick you into thinking it's different, right? It's really a 3-1 game. Somebody's yelling it's 3-2.
I'm convinced players on the bench have no clue what the score is.
None.
Because it varies widely in these skates. This may be a much different situation. As we watch a rush, Alec Martinez out on the ice, paired with Jimmy Schultz in this case. Puck out of play. Broadcasting from Studio 31 at City National Arena. And watching training camp 2.0 for the Vegas Golden Knights, back on the ice after a day off, and you could tell they needed that day off yesterday from the tail end of the workout. They were a little burned out.
Yeah, you could see in the scrimmage the other day, it looked like they were ready for a day off, and that's not a negative. You know, when you've been grinding 4 or 5 days in a row and you're getting your body acclimated to playing meaningful hockey again, you're going to get tired of it. You know, the play started to get a little bit looser, and To Pete DeBoer's credit too, I'm sure he could sense that coming. That's why that day was scheduled. That hey, we're going to push it for these several days in a row, but you will have this day off. Take it, get some rest. But yeah, you could just tell that they were a little bit loose. It seemed like at times that last one.
I want to finish the conversation on the special team. So the idea of having a power play to handle a majority of the 2-minute man advantage, and then switching off late, does that allow that first unit to be a little more patient? And I'm just putting your own mind into play here. And if you think you've only got a minute, you got to make something happen quicker.
Not sure if it makes them any more patient, but I think it at least gives them the reins to set up and get through the motions they need to find the play that they want to have happen. The thing about penalty killing these days, though, is that you don't have much time and space. That's the goal of every penalty kill, is to take away the opportunity to have the puck on your blade. So, can they be patient knowing that they may be out there for a long time? Sure. But they're still going to want to try to snap the puck around as quick as they can and get it to the net. It's not just a matter of utilizing, one person to distribute the puck. You're going to need all 5 guys on the ice to get their touches and ultimately try to get it through. So patience, sure. But there's such a premium at getting the puck to the net. You don't want to wait for the perfect shot. Sometimes, and we've seen Shea Theodore be so good at this, if you can't set up that perfect play, if you can't get it on Max Pacioretty's stick, just get the puck to the net. There's no problem with that, getting pucks through. And Theodore's one of the best in the league as defensemen at just finding ways to get the puck to the net. And we've just witnessed an unbelievable sequence from Robin Lehner here. Poke check into a 2-pad stack, Darren.
Well, the poke check is one of the areas that they both goaltenders, for as different as they are, they both utilize that.
They do. They're very handsy in a good way. Robin has great hands, and they're both instinctive goaltenders in that way. For as much as we talk about Robin Lehner just using his size, staying patient, not moving a lot, he's not afraid to be aggressive with his hands and to use his stick and to poke check. What's interesting with him, like, he uses a really short stick, though. So there's a bit of an element of surprise.
Is it really short, or does it just look short because he's so big?
Well, it's both.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll get really specific on this. The paddle of the stick, the portion that's from his hand to the blade of the stick, that wide part that you can see right now, that's the same height as everybody in the league. 26 inches maximum size on it. But the shaft of his stick, the portion that's above his blocker hand to the knob, is short for him, and it's something that a lot of European, Finnish, Swedish goaltenders use. Why? He likes the balance of it that way, which to me always struck me as odd. I mean, when we were teammates years ago in the Ottawa organization, I always thought his stick felt out of balance because I used a longer shaft on mine. He said, no, you're crazy. This is perfect.
Is that your Swedish accent?
It's terrible, isn't it? No. Mac, this stick is perfect. And Kari Ramo was the same way. He's Finnish, but same thing. They just like that feel of it. But it also, when I would poke check, I admittedly it would kind of telegraph that I was going to do it because the shaft is so long that I'd have to prepare. Robin can do it really quickly because the shaft length isn't very long on it.
It's almost 5 a.m. in Australia, but Carl is watching in Darwin. So that's dedication. Mark is in Barrie, Ontario, just north of Toronto, and Dimitri watching from Copenhagen, Denmark. So there's some check-ins. Tanya, by the way, is supposed to be working, but she's watching. So we're not going to say Tanya's last name because we don't want to get her in trouble with the boss. And David wants to know how much, with so much talent on the blue line, where does Nick Hague fit in?
Well, Nick Hague really, to me, watched his game progressed so much during the first half of the season when he was with the Golden Knights. You saw him take power play minutes. He finally got that goal. And we were just sitting on that too, right? For the Hager bomb was the quote that everybody on our team seemed to be dying to use. It started to come, and then Zach Whitecloud got his opportunity and he ran with it. And if I'm Nick Hague, I'm looking at this as that, hey, I've got a great opportunity this season to play a lot of minutes, to watch my game grow, and to know that, hey, this organization put me in that position for a reason. They believe in me. But now I've got to take that next step again next year. So minutes like this in training camp, could he see minutes in the playoffs? Absolutely. I think anybody that's on the ice right now that goes to Edmonton could see minutes in the playoff. But Nick Hague being left-handed too, there's another aspect to it, right? Whitecloud's right-handed. But I just feel like the patience of Nick Hague throughout the season, at first he looked like he was passive and that he was at times questioning himself. By December, that wasn't happening. He was instinctively making decisions. So I think he's going to be a big part of the team going forward. I mean, his size, his reach, those are all intangibles that are really, really important for a defenseman in the National Hockey League. And if he can just continue to have his offensive instincts grow, which they've had at the American League level, he's put up points there, and to eventually be able to take over into being a power play threat in the National Hockey League, hopefully you see that start to happen by next season.
You've seen a lot of these guys who were up and got looks come back in phase 3 with much more confidence that they're part of this group.
Absolutely. And what you just said, they're part of this group. That's the key. You have to have an inclusive environment for all your players. It's tough. Like, I've been in the situation before where I've been in a hotel for months on end up with an NHL team, and in the back of your head you're thinking, am I really part of this? And you think about Mark Stone inviting in Peyton Krebs into his house. You think about all these guys that have become really close. Oscar Dansk staying with William Karlsson. That helps so much to foster this feeling. And right now in this phase, they're all in it together. They're all part of this team. Nick Waugh especially. Think about him. The confidence of his game too. It grew over the season. Well, he's a part of this team. No questions asked.
That's a group right there.
Yeah, it's a nice huddle.
They can't find the puck.
Yeah, where'd it go?
It's up in his mask. Is it? Oh, no, it's in his gear.
We're going to get it eventually.
It was a sharp angle shot.
So who gets the prize when
this
they
is
pull it
worth
out?
the live stream.
So who's going to get the prize when it eventually comes out here? This is kind of like going to the amusement park. Mark Stone, I don't know where it is. This is like you go to the amusement park, you put your $2 or $3 in, and you eventually try to put that ring around the soda bottle or whatever. Never happens. You just keep putting it. So, well, he lost the puck. Let's get another one.
If this was a real game, they'd have to somehow find that puck. Have you ever had to take off your sweater or anything?
Thankfully, I never had to undress on the ice. That was probably good for everybody involved, whether jersey or equipment. I have had a puck get stuck in my pants that I couldn't feel where it was, just because of all the different equipment. And I remember just kind of shimmying around, and all of a sudden it dropped out of my pants. There's the puck.
And that's the fear. No doubt where that one is. William Karlsson comes down the wall and goes short side.
But yeah, it's funny when you lose the puck because the guys are skating up to you and you're thinking, I know I have this, but I can't feel where it is.
That's a sign that the equipment was too big.
It was,
when you couldn't feel it.
I won't
William
argue with
Karlsson, he's one of those players, top end talent, but based on where he was with his year and battling injury at the start and then out for a stretch of games in the middle of the season, you never really saw William Karlsson at 100%. This return to play, I think, is going to be great to watch and see where his game and his production is.
If you're looking at players on the Golden Knights who maybe needed this break the most, it might be William Karlsson, like you said, for different reasons. He's another guy who's battled injuries all season long. He hasn't been able to shoot the puck the way he wanted to a lot early in the season due to a hand injury. Everything's healed up now. So you look at his production, it wasn't what it normally was. It started to come later in the year. 15 goals in 46 games, usually higher for him. Shooting percentage was much lower. If you're trying to shoot the puck, though, without having all your muscles and working together and at full strength, it's really tough to do, And it's not that William Karlsson's a guy who continually outpowers goaltenders with a shot, but he's got a tricky release, and that's where I think you're going to see his game really take off in this. You started to see it more towards the end of the season. When he had the puck on the stick, he was looking like himself. But his assists, sure, they're there. He's killing everything else. But that combination of being again with Riley Smith, and you should see his game grow. And I think he's really, Robin Leonard with yet another sweep check there.
Peyton Krebs, too, on the rush.
Yeah, and he's had a great camp. He looks right at home out there, which is no surprise. I mean, a 17th overall pick, you'd expect a first rounder to be able to fit in on it right away. But for somebody who missed so much time with an injury, that's
those numbers with the Winnipeg Ice and the Western Hockey League are ghastly.
eye-opening, aren't they?
60 points in games 38.
That's not a bad number. 16-38, most guys would take that.
What have you liked about his game? Gary and I chatted about it earlier on the training camp report presented by Station Casinos and the Bulletin. I mentioned his vision. What jumps out to you?
Yeah, I think the first thing everybody notices is his hands. And that's, for a high-end player, you see it with Cody Glass, too. Great hands. First-rounders all seem to have that. His vision, yes. And what I noticed right away, and I think it's an instinctual thing for us, is that his head's up all the time. That lets him have his vision. Some guys have a knack for being able to make passes without taking a look. Other players do it with their head up all the time. Mark Stone's a guy whose head's up all the time. He finds lanes because of it. I've noticed that with Krebs too. Like, he seems like he's constantly surveying the ice, which is leading him to find lanes. And that lets him skate to where he needs to be to make things happen. That's your next level of skill set beyond the physical attributes, beyond having a great shot or great hands. Awareness. Situationally, when the puck's on your stick, when it's not on your stick. So I think you're spot on that his vision is very good, but it's all because he gives himself his best chance to have great vision by having his head up and by finding places on the ice that are going to give him a chance to distribute pucks like he does so well.
Scrimmage is over. They're going to wrap things up on the ice. Players have the option of staying on for their own individual work, and I don't know whether that's a formal meeting at the bench right now. We remind you, the players aren't all together in one dressing room right now.
Yeah.
They're not using the Golden Knights room. They're split up into much smaller numbers, using all the rooms that are between the Star Nursery and the Summerlin Hospital rink here at City National Arena. So keeping the groupings themselves where they get ready as small as possible. So a lot of times they're on the same team, but they haven't seen each other kind of thing.
It's really odd to see him come on the ice through different doors than we're used to here at City National Arena. Usually they'd come out onto the rink through the same double doors. And here we go. Here comes Alec Martinez and Riley Smith, who, by the way, just happened to be in the same locker room. They were college teammates as well. So I'm sure it's nice for them, but you hear the players talk about it that they can't wait to get back into a setting where they can all be in the same room again with the guys, be on the plane together. And, aside from on the ice, they haven't seen each other a lot. It's not like they're
going to.
Well, they're going to see themselves plenty going from here on. But, it's not like they've been having social events and going to dinner and things. Like they've been pretty separated, and by design. It's players really, not just the Golden Knights, but across the league here. You look at Phase 3, and you look at the testing, and players have done a really, really good job of being able to get themselves hopefully to Phase 4 and get ready to play some hockey with minimal positive tests.
Teams will head to the hub cities on Sunday. Toronto for the Eastern Conference, the first two rounds there, and then the conference final for the East and the Stanley Cup final will be in Edmonton. And the Western Conference team, if you run the table, you will spend the entire 2.5 months in Edmonton. Almost 3 months in Edmonton. Parts of 4 months, July, August, September, October. If you go all the way in the National Hockey League Stanley Cup Playoffs in the Western Conference, you will be in Edmonton. So we're looking forward to that as they head into the bubble. But it's gonna happen quickly. Start with 24 teams, 12 in each hub city, but you're gonna get down to the 4 in basically 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's really going to feel like it too, because the teams that aren't in that initial play-in are still playing round-robin games. And the Vegas Golden Knights have their exhibition game, 3 round robins to determine seeding for the playoffs. It's going to be nonstop, and it's going to go by so quickly. Think about 3 months, October, November, December. Think about how quickly the season goes to the holiday break. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what we're looking at here. It goes by in a flash. And I like what the NHL did too with this, how if you make it to the second round, they're allowing wives and kids to come in for the players. That's a huge get for the players. It's awesome for them because you want to be able to share this. But ultimately, if you're going away for 3 months to somewhere in the middle of a pandemic like this, it's a big moment for players that they had to decide that, hey, we want to do this, but we also realize everybody's going through some form of pain with this in some ways. Going away from your family for whatever time it may be, with the opportunity to win a Stanley Cup, and knowing that, hey, they can come in towards the end anyway, it's all worth it. And I find it so exciting that people are just so excited for hockey again, and you're going to get it in spades.
We're excited to talk to the players via our Zoom meetings, and after practice now, let's check in with Riley Smith. Riley, just want to confirm communication. Are you there? We'll connect with Riley in just a second as practice is over. There's Riley. How are you? So we went into the locker room, so the connection might not be as good inside that dressing room. We'll reestablish it in just a little second. Can you hear me right now, Riley? Okay, we'll get back to Riley in just a bit if we can, and establish that with the winger, who again is back with William Karlsson on the penalty kill. Separate lines as they go through. We've got him. Getting the thumbs up now. One more time, Riley.
Let's hear you.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
There
Good.
we go.
How was today coming off the day off? This is sort of the third segment of this phase 3. How do you feel?
Good. It was nice to do a little bit of a scrimmage at the end. I think a little bit looser today, but it's good just to be able to roll over shifts and get used to, your line mates and the deep pairing. So I think it's another positive day for our group, and we'll, take it and then move on to tomorrow.
How different is it today coming off the ice from that initial skate in phase 3? I know you guys worked out a lot during phase 2, but just 11 days ago, how different do you feel?
Not too much different, honestly. We did a lot of work during phase 2 in small groups up to 11 skaters. So everyone's in good shape. We've all been skating for a long time. It's really just doing kind of nitpicky stuff right now, just trying to work on our systems a little bit and make sure everyone's on the same page at all times.
Riley, you and William Karlsson have been a dynamic duo on the penalty kill for the Golden Knights. I look at what you're doing now, though, and there's such an emphasis on the aggressiveness on the puck carrier. But can you speak maybe to how the importance is of everybody on the ice that's not playing hard on the puck carrier, how they need to get in position to make things successful on the penalty kill for you guys?
Well, a penalty kill really is a 5-man unit. The goalie's definitely included in that. They're definitely our best penalty killers all the time. But especially in zone, we have a lot of triggers, and we try to put a lot of pressure on the puck. So, the opposing team's power play doesn't feel comfortable enough where they can set up and get to their spots easily. And like I said, it's a group mentality. When one guy goes, everyone goes, and you got to keep that pressure because you're really reliant on each other.
Oh, we're breaking down the scrimmages and all your practices as much as we can, but from a player's perspective, who's caught your eye out here in the last few days?
It's tough to really spot any players. Everyone's done such a great job coming in here with a positive mindset and with bringing a lot of energy. We don't score too many goals in these scrimmages, so there's not too many people who are really lighting up the scoreboard. I think the biggest focus for us is just playing a smart team game, and it seems like we're doing that right now. Defense is huge, especially when the playoffs come around, so that's one thing we're really harping on.
Did you ever think that a couple of years later you'd be on a power play in the National Hockey League with Alec Martinez, your old teammate at Miami University? Maybe rekindle some of the magic you had back there?
I missed him by a couple of years in Miami, but obviously he's had
maybe
quite
at the
a legacy.
alumni skates.
Yeah, I guess so. 1 or 2 years. He's brought quite a legacy with some of his late game heroics and overtime goals he scored in his career. So it's nice to be able to play with a guy like him. He's really positive. He's always trying to help other players get better, and he's a great team player. And then being able to play with him on the power play is nice. He's got a big shot, so we try to load him up and give him as many opportunities to let it go as possible.
Appreciate the time and putting in a few extra steps after practice to walk down the hall where we can connect with you. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks, Riley.
Riley Smith, winger with the Vegas Golden Knights, and that's awesome, being able to get an idea of what they've gone through and going through. And he says it's nitpicky stuff right now, working on things as they go through this final segment.
That's tough, and we had to get the reception out of the tin can. Sometimes it's difficult, but yeah, you take what he says there about how we're just dialing everything in really tight, trying to get everything, all those loose ends. And it was really perceptive what he said about the penalty kill, how it truly is a 5-man unit, and it's not just the person who's attacking the puck that you need to have support from. Gave credit to his goaltenders, very nice of him, but any goaltender will also tell you that it's just important that the guys in front of you are playing well. I mean, penalty killing used to be that just keep the puck to the outside and let your goalie make the saves. And now it's just all about taking away time and space so that you make sure that the other team has to really work for them to get an opportunity. And Riley Smith, with his hockey sense and that chemistry he has with William Karlsson, it's a big reason why they've been so successful. They don't allow the other team to have time and space.
One of the things about Riley Smith that I find impressive is he could score from distance. What is it about his shot?
It's tricky. You know, he moves the puck from kind of the toe of his blade to the heel before he releases it. And you'll see him score pretty routinely in practice on goaltenders that are world class. You know, there's only a certain set of guys that can do that. The release of the puck is really where guys find things that are tricky. You know, Max Pacioretty's got a tricky release too, but his is just so hard that he can beat you flat out. And that's not to say Riley Smith can't shoot it really hard as well. Everybody at the National Hockey League can. But bringing it from side to side, you can't really tell which side he's shooting to. And that's the hardest aspect. If you can at least get a read on the side that the puck's going to head to, you can prepare for it. But as you know, you get locked in and then you start hoping. Next thing you know, it's right by your ear and in the net.
I know it's just a little thing, but just seeing a bit of a smile on a player's face as you talk to him like that, it's awesome.
Well, it's been kind of the fun aspect,
Yeah.
I think, of this return to play. You know, we've been given access like this that even though we don't get to see the guys in the locker room, you know, interviewing them right off the ice in a Zoom call like that, you know, we saw him walking through the building, you know, jarring around, and they're just
I'm
so
pretty sure
excited
that's
to
a
play.
first for him.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
You know, but it's just so exciting. Like, we were all being forced to be creative here, and the boys are excited, man, and we are too.
Good shift for you here. You'll be with me tomorrow morning for VGK Daily.
Yep.
Okay, book it in. I just wasn't sure whether you
Got
put
it
it
on
in
the
your calendar or
calendar.
not.
Can't wait.
Thanks to Mike McKenna for bringing us home on the Cool Down. Gary Lawless on Training Camp Bulletin, presented by Station Casinos. You watching via the Next Gen camera. Summerlin Hospital Rink Training Camp workout. Just winding up. The last players leaving the ice now. On day 9, we'll be back with you tomorrow with our entire broadcast team live streaming these workouts as we get set for the next stage, and that is the departure for Edmonton and the arrival on Sunday and the start of games. Again, July 30th is the first game for the Vegas Golden Knights against the Arizona Coyotes, and then the 3rd, 6th, and 8th of August against the Dallas Stars, St. Louis Blues, and the Colorado Avalanche, and we will be here every step of the way. Thanks to you for watching. Can't do it without you. It's been so much fun having the interaction. Be safe, and we will chat with you tomorrow on Training Camp Bulletin from here at City National Arena.